Hi. I'm good. We made it. Safe and sound. Yeah, I coached against Sark when I was at Oregon, and then Sark was at Washington. So faced him for a couple years. He's a heck of a football coach. His teams are always prepared. They do a really nice job. Um, you got to be ready when you're playing against a Sark coach team.
Chip, how much do you watch other offenses as opposed to other defenses?
Well, you watch the other offense when you're watching the other defense. So you know what I mean. So like when you're watching all 12 of our now the playoff game and the championship game, all 14 of their games. You're not only watching Texas on defense, but you're watching the teams that played against them. So you saw Georgia twice. You saw Arizona State last week, and then every other game that they played this year. So, you're looking at both. You're looking at plays that, maybe that is there a certain group of plays that really affected their defense, and try to put together as you try to put together your plan. So,
how much of a temptation is there to do too much of what other teams do well against someone versus what you do well?
Yeah, I think that's the dilemma for all coaches. Like, hey, that's a really good play, but how does it fit into what we do? How does it fit into the skill sets of our players? We're trying to play to our strengths. And so you may say, hey, this is a good scheme, but it takes a certain type of player at this position to run it, and it may not be what we're in. It also may be something, we don't do at all. So then, time on task. How many times would you have to run that play versus the varied looks that they give you? And is it worth investing that time in that, or is it better to invest in time in some other things? So that's always part of your how much is too much, how much is too little. You're always kind of going into these games and saying, are we prepared for each situation? Do we have enough plays in those situations? Then do we have the requisite amount of time to practice them so that you feel confident that when you call them in a game that our players can execute them. So.
Coach, what do you know about the Texas defensive coordinator?
I know Pete. Faced him back when I was on the West Coast, and Pete was on the West Coast at Washington also. He was there with Chris Peterson at the time. Really sound, very, very well-coached team. Their co-defensive coordinator, Johnny Nansen, was on my staff when I was at UCLA, so I worked with Johnny before. So really well-coached. They don't give up anything cheap. I think they're the number one red zone defense in the country, and that's for a reason. So and they played, a big time SEC schedule. So really, really well coached team and a really good scheme.
Calling the plays of the game, patience was tested because, as you just mentioned, defense was adamant on not giving up any attention.
Yeah, I think that happens in every game. So I don't think there's one in particular. I think every week you're, offensively you want to try to score every drive you have, but there are some times that, you go 3 and out and you're frustrated because, you didn't execute on first down, so now you had a second and long, and you didn't get half the distance on second down, so now you got a long third and long, and giving them an opportunity to get into their nickel or dime packages. And usually when you're trying to stay ahead of the sticks, so you can go from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 6 to 3rd and 3, and then 3rd and 3 is a lot easier than 3rd and 13. So, but that happens in every game itself. There's not one game where it was just every play you called worked. It never happens that way.
We talked earlier with Coach Bart about coming up in small ball coaching. He mentioned coaching against you at New Hampshire, and I think you and I have talked about this before. But do you think that coming up that way and coaching at that level is what have you picked up from that moving forward to where you are now?
I think everybody has varied paths to how they get there, and it's just I think sometimes when you are at a lower level, you have to have more responsibilities. So. Not only are you the running back coach, but you may also be the recruiting coordinator and in charge of filming practice. So, you pick up a lot of different things and a lot of different skill sets that maybe you wouldn't get if you were at a bigger school where you were just the GA for the O-line and that's all you ever did. You didn't get exposed to it. I think you get exposed to a lot more things, when you have to coach at the lower levels, just because there aren't as many coaches. So you have to wear a lot of different hats. So I think that helps you in the long run in terms of your development. But there's pluses to it.
Cornell, obviously, he hasn't had necessarily touches the last 2 games, given the way Jeremiah and Beckham played. On film, where is his value showing up the most?
I mean, I've always felt like we have three number one receivers, and that's the beautiful part of it is that if you're going to try to take away try to take away JJ and Mech, then that means that there's more opportunities for Carnell in those situations. So he's been outstanding. I think the game we played against Northwestern was a heck of a game by him. So I think it's on a weekly basis. It just depends on how the defense is going to deploy their personnel and what they're trying to take away and what they're trying to give us. But if we have the weapons that we have out wide, again, we feel like we got three number one receivers out there.
Jeremiah Smith, the best receiver you coached?
Jeremiah is a once-in-a-lifetime talent, so I'm not into comparisons of who's this, who's that. He's a special player that, we're really, really fortunate to have him.
Talked to you throughout the season about Will and running. We haven't seen him Monday, maybe a little bit more on this last game. How prepared do you feel like he is to do that?
Yeah, he's extremely prepared. I mean, Will's a tremendous athlete. So what we do is based upon what the defense gives us. And do you need to have him run? Are you into that? You look at winning the Penn State game. His legs were critical in that game, in the run game, down the stretch. So I think it just depends on how people are going to play you. But we have all the confidence in the world. If Will has to take it underneath his arm, he's going to do a good job with it.